Hi. Welcome to TableTalk Friday, a D&D podcast. Three guys are going to talk to each other and give their advice and opinions on Dungeons and Dragons and whatnot. If you like the show, make sure to follow them on whichever podcast service you prefer and come back every single Friday for another upload or episode, whatever you prefer to call it. Have fun, I guess. Bye. Yeah, ta-ta. Bye. See ya. Bye. Bye. Okay, so apparently this past week on Critical Role, there was some big player deaths.
Oh, really?
And I didn't know about it. I just got a couple thumbnails on my recommended in YouTube that were like, Matthew Mercer kills characters, and here's why you should too. And then I got another one that was like, let's discuss episode 30-something of Critical Role Campaign 3. And it had like blood splatters all over their main thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? This must be crazy. And then I was scrolling through some other things and people were like discussing it online. And I was like, I can't have this spoiled for me because I want to catch up. But I am months behind on Critical Role. Like they go once a week. I'm like 20, 25 episodes behind. So instead of being like, I'm going to watch the videos and recap, I was like, I'm going to ignore all outside sources until I catch up on Critical Role. So this past week, these past 2 days, I'm probably 8 episodes further than I was on these 4-hour long episodes that I'm 1.75 timesing because I have to know what happened in the 30s of campaign 3. Because I want to know like who's dead, what happened, what's happening with it, because it seems like big news in the campaign space. Like this is the biggest, we're talking about the biggest D&D show on the planet, and you're telling me that they killed off like their cast? I want to know if it's a TPK or not.
Right. So I mean, I guess my question, because I know nothing about Critical Role, have they dealt with player death before in previous campaigns? Yes.
So, small spoiler, I haven't watched all of campaign 2, but I know the general vibe of it. A character, about, I believe, 20 to 30 episodes in, one specific main character did die and got replaced and like came back later in the story as like a villainous style character. And like it ended up being like a really big emotional thing for them. But yeah, they've dealt with character death before, like replacing characters, and they've dealt with characters leaving the party and coming back. That's been a normal thing, but they've never had like a TPK or like multiple characters dying at once. And characters have died and been revived, and Matthew Mercer has his whole system where if they get revived, it's harder to revive them again, or they're missing something when they come back, which I really love. You know, having there be some sort of like
cost,
some sort of cost, like a price to pay for raising someone from the dead. So yeah, I've been binging Critical Role Campaign 3, and let me tell you, I listened to probably, I think I was 105 episodes into Campaign 1 when I dropped off, which is 10 episodes from the end. I'm right at the end, and I haven't listened to it. In the past 2 days, I could have finished it, but I haven't done it. You should have. I know the ending.
Yeah.
But I listened to all of that, and these characters that they're playing in Campaign 3 are their best characters. I love them to death. Like, they're so likable. They're so good. All of their backstories are fleshed out. The party is, like, so good. And I don't want them to die. I have to know who it is.
Yeah, now you're really fucking sweating bullets.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm on episode 19 right now, so I have like 11 or 12 more to go. Possibly. It could be like 13 or 14. But yeah, I know there's 32 episodes on the podcast service that I'm using, so I need the 33rd one to release because I believe that's it. It's episode 33, I think.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah, and it made me really think because I was like, I do have a tendency to, if it gets really close to killing multiple characters or something, to like pull a punch. Like I'll be like, okay, I do have an extra legendary action, but I'm gonna forget to use it or something. I won't use it because I don't want to murder this character right now, or like I can justify in my head why the monster wouldn't. I can be like, okay, well this monster's focused on this, so he's not gonna like take a tail swipe at this character. So I've had the tendency to do that before, and I've been thinking about it. And what are your thoughts on just being like, you know what, fuck it, if they lose, they lose?
that terrifies me as a DM. And I'll say that this is my worst quality as a DM is looking at player death as, shit, I fucked up, because that's not supposed to happen. But really, I think the fact that I was able to get you guys through Curse of Strahd with no one dying, that campaign's like a meat grinder, and none of you died. I think that really shows my hand of, well, this could have gone, a lot worse. But like at our table too, like we have dealt with character death before. In our very first campaign, people were dying left and right and getting replaced. But ever since, we haven't ever like fully committed to a party death. Like if someone dies, we've got the revivify, we've got the reviving Deus Ex Machina.
Right.
Like whatever may come. If you don't want to stop playing your character, you don't have to stop playing your character. But like if you set that expectation just right, like, hey, this is a deadly campaign, it could happen. Like in Curse of Strahd, I was really trying to gear you guys up for it. I was thinking, oh, well, it's gonna happen. I had things planned like, oh yeah, if someone dies, maybe you come back as a revenant or something like that. Like I had all this shit planned out. None of it happened.
Yeah. I've been thinking about it over the past few days, and I was like, if I did kill off multiple characters at once, I would hope that one lives, Right.
Well, that's the thing, right? If you get like a full TPK and everyone's dead, then I think that's the fine line, right? Like if you're gonna be killing players, it's really hard to come back like from a motivation and like a just an excitement level from your players to take on a TPK and then say, no, we're still continuing this campaign and your characters all died. And now we're picking up from a different starting point for a bunch of different people.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is what if it's the last fight, right? You guys go into your fight against Zariel, and before you're able to redeem her with the Sword of Zariel, she's able to get to you first and off you all. The Sword of Zariel falls into the river Styx and you all die. Where do we go from there?
Seth, you don't get to be the DM anymore.
No, I mean,
Patrick's the DM.
I honestly feel like that's a viable option. Like, now that I've thought about it, I'm like, that is a viable way to continue the story. As in, this happens, Elturel stays missing for a very long time. Either you guys take up new characters in the city who have to figure this out after watching the band of party members lose, or Elturel's missing for a long time. We time skip again. It's been missing for 5-6 years, and a search party goes in to find him.
Yeah, I am fully behind. Like, as a player, I think if, as my DM, you said, all right, not our proudest moment, everyone's dead, but we're going to continue this campaign, and I'm going to put in the work to make this story make sense. And, like, yeah, we're setting it 6 years later, or, yeah, we're setting it in such a way where the cataclysmic event that we were trying to prevent has occurred, and now we live in this post-losing state world. If you're going to put in the time and effort as a DM to make that happen, then as a player, the only thing that I can do is say, all right, well, you wrote this all yourself, so I'm going to play through it.
Well, and everybody would... I feel like in that situation, it's a very enticing narrative. Whereas I know everybody in the moment would be disappointed, but by the time you finish your 30 sessions, 40 sessions with these new characters, this strike team who have decided we're going to figure out what happened to the city, this many years later after it just disappeared out of nowhere. So yeah, you're going to get down to it. You're this investigative team. It's been 6 years later, and you all start at, say, level 7 or 8. You go in, you do 4 or 5 levels of adventuring, get to the bottom of it, and, figure it out yourself. Someone has to get to that Sword of Zariel in the River Styx this time, and it's caused something else to happen there, like a new dungeon. I don't know. I feel like character death could be really good for the campaign. Obviously, I didn't watch the video that was like, Matthew Merchant's killed characters and you should too. because I don't want to know how it happened. But I will. I feel like that's a topic we should come back to with Drew here and go over it. Because if you guys haven't noticed, Drew is not here this week. He's not feeling great. So it's just going to be Zach and I. We've had a wild couple, 2 months of scheduling with D&D and podcasting lately, to where it's been like, oh God, are we going to be able to keep the schedule? Are we going to be able to keep the schedule? And so far, we've been able to do it. So I'm hopeful that will continue in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And, we've done it, you guys, all by yourselves in the past, so... Now you get the Zach and Seth dynamic. I'm sure you're all super excited about that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm selfless enough to be the one who misses. I always am like, I'll be there. I'll make it happen. I'll kill someone to be there.
We're doing it. We're recording now. We're recording today.
Well, yeah, and Drew had mentioned, he was like, yeah, we might have to miss a week, boys. And I was like, I'm not missing a week. I got this. Zach and I can do a show together. And with that, welcome to TableTalk Friday, a D&D podcast. This week, we are going to be talking about campaign settings, what we like about them, our experiences with different settings, and what our ideal play setting kind of looks like. I know it's been on our mind a lot lately because currently... both Zach or all of us play in the Forgotten Realms setting, the general 5e base setting for most of their campaigns. Not all of them, just most of them. And I have to say, I really like the Forgotten Realms overall. It's very cool. But I've been reading a bunch of other settings lately, and we're definitely changing settings for our next campaign because I'm just so excited with everything that I'm getting to.
Yeah, so I guess before we jump into a lot of the different campaign settings, I'll go ahead and give my 2 cents for why you might enjoy playing in the Forgotten Realms, since that's
perfect.
That's sort of like the default campaign setting.
Yeah.
I think almost everyone, even if you don't know that you've been playing in the Forgotten Realms, if you started D&D in 5th edition, your campaign has probably had something to do with the Forgotten Realms, or if not, your DM is more creative than I.
Yeah, right.
But everyone starts with Lost Mines of Phandelver, right? So there's...
I hope they start with Dragon of Icespire Peak now.
Yeah, or Dragons of Stormwreck Isle.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about it, but maybe it's good.
Me neither.
But in any case, Forgotten Realms is sort of, if you take all of the standard fantasy trappings that you'd expect from D&D, you got knights in shining armor, you've got, a monarchy, class-based, kingdoms and that sort of thing, system going on. All with fantasy creatures and races that more or less live together in harmony, and they're all sort of spread out everywhere.
And
so
any single one of them, any single fantasy creature could end the world.
Oh, absolutely, and for some reason they don't. If you really jump deep into the Forgotten Realms lore, it makes a lot more sense than it's fully presented in a lot of the 5e material, I'll say, but. Forgotten Realms is great as sort of a popcorn setting. You throw your friends in, you say, it's fantasy. You know what that is, right? You've played Skyrim. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, we're going to Baldur's Gate. It's the bad one. We're going to Waterdeep. It's the money one.
Yeah. You ever heard of New York? Imagine that, but fantasy.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
So there's that element of it's just super easy to get into. You don't need all this background information. But if you're that kind of DM where you see the little bits and pieces that they've laid out for you, there is a lot of material out there for the lore of the Forgotten Realms and the history behind how everything came to be. And so the Forgotten Realms is a great, I'll say it's shallow to start, but you can make it as deep as you want. And there are a lot of good resources out there that make it easy for you to pull up information. I'll say Forgotten Realms Wiki, just Google that shit. You'll find way too much information about pretty much everything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And while you've definitely brought up, I agree with everything Zach said. I feel like it's the quintessential fantasy setting, and that's not a bad thing, but it's also a bad thing because we've been playing in Forgotten Realms for quite a while, and I thought that months ago I would have never thought I could do Forgotten Realms forever. I could do this for as long as possible. Sword Coast, we can just run adventures here for the rest of our lives and never get bored of it. And I'm happy to say I was very wrong about that. because Forgotten Realms, while it's amazing, I think it has amazing campaigns. I feel like all of the campaigns that are most interesting in Forgotten Realms take you out of the Forgotten Realms. Like, they take you out of the fantasy trappings of it. Curse of Strahd takes you to a completely other plane of Barovia. Like, you just go there for the entirety of the campaign. That's probably the best written campaign. Rime of the Frost Maiden traps you in Icewind Dale, one specific section that's like basically the exact same thing. You're sectioned off from the world. I know this is one of the better written ones. You're sectioned off, and you are no longer allowed to leave here. You can have these amazing adventures in tiny little sections of the Forgotten Realms, and I feel like that's what they're perfect for, is giving you these tiny little places that have to do with fantasy, but when it comes to big world-ending, like wars and all of these crazy things that are going on, you better be on your knowledge about the Forgotten Realms or you're not going to know anything. Like, you better know who Laeral Silverhand knows, who she's working with, what cities have the Lord's Alliance involved, which ones don't, how the Moonshae Isles have to do with anything on the Sword Coast, what's going on in Baldur's Gate and Daggerford. Like, all of that better be in your brain, or else it's not really going to make sense when one of your players goes and looks up on the fandom wiki. Oh, what's Daggerford up to? Oh, they know a lot about Baldur's Gate. Why didn't they come to help? You know?
Right. And not only that, like, there's just so much political undertone that exists, like, out there in the collective knowledge, in novelizations of Forgotten Realms and all that shit. But that doesn't really come up in any of these campaigns that we're running. Like Storm King's Thunder, you're really using the Forgotten Realms as sort of like a playground for this unrelated thing going on. But like, you hit up all the major locations, not just on the Sword Coast, but like even further inland.
Right.
And there's not enough there for you to like flesh it out and make it feel like a Middle Earth. Tolkien really like took a whole fantasy setting and thought about every blade of grass in it and how it interacts with the rest of the world. I think Forgotten Realms has the potential to be that, but it's not there out of the box. Nor should you really need to make it that if you don't want. So I think Forgotten Realms has a lot of good going for it. There's even the island of Chult for Tomb of Annihilation. Baldur's Gate: Descent into Avernus takes you to Hell. There's a ton of awesome materials, and pretty much all the good campaigns for 5th edition are going to take you to Forgotten Realms. But it's a little bland compared to some of the other settings. And so when you've had your fun in Forgotten Realms and you've said, okay, well, I've seen enough of this, and I'm starting to get peeved by the fact that all these renowned, famous adventurers exist and none of them are solving these problems for us.
Right.
Then maybe I'll look to another setting.
Which brings me into a setting that you have run, and one that I am going to be running shortly, hopefully, Eberron. The origins of Eberron, I know Eberron was a voted-on fan-made setting back in, was it like 2nd edition? Something like that?
End of 2nd edition, start of 3rd edition, I believe.
Yeah, so Eberron was created by fans and voted on to become an official campaign setting for Dungeons & Dragons. Now, when you think of Eberron, I want you to take everything you know about fantasy and throw it out the door, because we're going into more of a noir steampunk setting for your campaigns. A lot of creatures that exist in Eberron are a little more civilized. You might see a little more... you might be able to fill me in a little bit better on that, Zach, because I haven't gotten down to like the actual like races that are being that are involved in the Eberron setting. But I know that you're given this giant city of Sharn, which I almost imagine to be kind of like a Midgar from Final Fantasy VII, except New York. So
every campaign setting, first of all, every campaign setting has New York. It's like that, but in this setting.
Yeah, and Sharn is that in Eberron. Sharn is this massive city that is layered on top of one another, rising high into the sky. Really cool. Like, airships are a big deal here. Technology has kind of made its way into the lives of everybody, but not technology in the way you think, where it's electricity and everything, but it's all the advancement of magic. So while not a lot of high-level casters exist in this setting, there are a lot of people who have a great knowledge of lower-level casting and like lower levels of magic. So things like the light rail exist, which use little enchanted, I believe, stones to shoot electricity between the actual train itself and the tracks.
Yeah, they also use there's like a bound. These don't typically exist in D&D, but they do in Eberron. Lightning elemental that it functions like in the furnace of the lightning rail and powers it and gives it its electricity.
Yeah, so
similarly, they'll have like other vehicles that they've got, like airships, a bound air elemental inside the machine, or like if you've got a hot air balloon, a fire elemental powering that. Things like that. So ways to use magical creatures.
So they've got technology in the way that magic helps it. They've got wands and such, like magical items that can be bought by normal civilians to defend themselves. So instead of going out and getting yourself certified to use a gun, you can go get yourself a wand that fires off firebolt. Things like that.
Yeah, and that's super common too. Like the regular infantry in the military would get like standard issue, single use wands, right?
Right.
It just casts firebolt, but now you're trained up. And what's really what was a big special idea at the time with Eberron was the idea that not just the spellcasters get to play with magic. So in addition to just common regular use magic items, anyone can use them. There's also this group of people, the dragon marked, the groups from pretty much every race that have some special mark associated with them that gives them spellcasting regardless of their class. So like a halfling could have the mark of healing, and then you get things like cure wounds and healing word just as a part of your race. And if you're a fighter, you still have those spells and you can still cast them just fine.
And
that's true for a ton of different races. They get these different dragon marks.
Yeah, and each of those dragon marks, I believe, is toned down to one house. Like it can be granted by one house, correct?
Right. So the dragon marked houses are sort of where you, in addition to like the national borders and everything, is sort of like culturally where you draw like the lines for a lot of the upper crust of Eberron, like the rich and powerful forces that are really influencing the society and culture and politics and everything are all wrapped up into these dragon marked houses. So I want to say, what's the house? There's one in particular that is like the home of artifice and artificers who create magic items.
I literally just read this the other day and I can't remember, but I do know that House Orion is the house that's in charge of transportation. So things like airships, the lightning rail, all of that is run by House Orion.
Yeah, I'm looking through the book. I'm trying to see if I can. Mark of Making from House Cannith.
Yeah,
they're the ones, and they also fueled the war machine that created all the Warforged and that sort of thing. So. In addition to all of this, magical technology that exists in Eberron, the whole idea and the premise for the setting as you come to it, and this is just in most of the official material. You don't necessarily have to run Eberron in this time, but the idea is they're just after a great war that's happened. Think kind of like World War II. It's a sort of not so subtle reference to that. So. There was this big magical war between tons of groups of people. House Cannith was making Warforged, robot humanoid people.
Literal like AI made of magic.
Yeah, with their sole purpose being, being machines of war.
Soldiers.
And so this war finally came to a head where there was this one huge cataclysmic event. I forget what it was called.
Known as the Morning.
The Morning,
Yep.
Yes, that's what it is. Where... essentially, no one knows exactly who set this off or
how it
happened. But one of the largest nations in all of Corvair is the main continent that you spend time on Eberron, was completely destroyed by this atomic level magical explosion.
Yep.
And so that entire place is completely wiped out.
I believe the section is named Cyre, like Cyre.
Yeah.
Is the section that got...
I always pronounced it Sire.
Sire, Seer, whatever you want to call it. That section, the largest city in that section was completely blown up, like nuclear bomb style blown up. Again, subtle hints to... not very subtle hints to World War II. So big nuclear explosion goes off, many people die there, and a treaty is signed in order to uphold the peace, in order for to prevent, we don't want this to happen again. Let's sign this treaty for peace for now. And there's still a little bit of unsettling, like there are now no longer alliances within the military wheel other than this kind of shoddily thrown together treaty. So you're coming into this world at this time. With whatever cast of characters you have. Adventurers are a huge deal in Eberron. A lot of these upper crust houses, now that the war has happened and a lot of resources are depleted, are relying on adventurers to do their dirty work for them. So there's plenty of room for adventure, especially lower level adventurers. Big, gigantic, cataclysmic things aren't really happening as often to create these, level 20 adventurers that are just common throughout everywhere. There aren't a whole lot of archmages just walking around. Of course, characters can get there, and you can work really hard to get there, but there aren't a lot of them. Not so many like in Forgotten Realms to where you walk into Everland and there's a whole tower full of like high-level bards and archmages that are just hanging out and just not doing anything about these cataclysmic events going on in the world. Here in Eberron, a lot of people are just living their normal lives with the assistance of technology and letting adventurers do all the dirty work for them.
Yeah, exactly. So Eberron, as opposed to the Forgotten Realms, I think feels it just, you hear that story and immediately, and I think part of this has a lot to do with the fact that, we're American, so we've got like this sort of basis in, American pop culture and history and how that influences it. But you say, yeah, it's sort of like post-war, like the 40s and 50s, think film noir or like pulp, sci-fi or fantasy. Like that all exists in Eberron, and it's all sort of birthed of the same idea. So there's Breland, which is the home of Sharn, and is very much what you could think of as sort of like the United States, I think. That's where they put their fantasy New York. But then they're, on the borders with a ton of other interesting places like Drome, just a whole nation made up of monstrous humanoids.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, literally this whole area, this section of the map is of monsters. Like, monsters live here. They live here not... I mean, I'm sure there's, problems and, some cannibalisms or something going on somewhere, but, like, they have their system down. This is a peaceful nation of monsters.
Yeah, 100%. And there's Karnath, where basically a powerful necromancer decided, to protect our people and to fuel our war machine, we're just going to create an unstoppable undead army. And so now, like, in Karnath, there's just a huge army ready to go of undead, and they live, like that, just ready to attack. There's the Talenta Plains, which is sort of like a big, wide expanse. You could think of that sort of as like the Wild West, except it's very popular or populated by halflings who ride around on dinosaurs. So sort of like cowboys, but sort of not. There's Kibara, which is just a huge jungle place to explore. There's the Demon Wastes, a ton of cool places. Also, they have the Shadow Marches, which is where a lot of the orcs live. And one of my favorite things that Eberron does is their lore for orcs. So rather than being like an inherently, if you look at Drome, they've got a lot of like goblins and bugbears and ogres and that sort of thing. But orcs aren't sort of lumped in with that like type of standard low-level monster humanoid that you would fight. Orcs are actually one of the oldest existing races and have existed from long before as sort of like this nomadic druidic people. And their whole thing is they're defending against attacks from aberrations from the outer planes.
And that's something I really like about orcs is I always saw orcs as the equivalent to elves. Orcs are, to me, they're like the other side of the elven nations. Like, I feel like elves and orcs go like against each other all the time, and that they're one of the oldest races. And even in Forgotten Realms, that's how I always envision them, even though they're brought about as these very like, carnivorous, deadly, like monstrous beings. I'm like, nah, orcs to me are much more civilized than that, and can be. And that's just what I always think of them as. So when I make an orc, I don't just assume, oh yeah, that's a bad guy.
Yeah, and so it's nice that that's sort of the assumed thing in Eberron. Like, in Forgotten Realms, there is still sort of this idea of, you run into monstrous creatures. If unless your DM, sets up your table to believe otherwise, as written in Forgotten Realms, like, orcs, goblins, all these people are very much just like uncivilized, sort of on the fringes of society. But goblins also get a really nice glow up in Eberron too. I believe they're some of the best artificers in terms of creating new inventions, and
they're like gnomes. They're like the it's like we have elves and orcs in my head. We also have gnomes and goblins.
Yeah, exactly. And so goblins take on sort of some of that gnomish ness about them, and also goblins and orcs all speak the same language too. There's no
instead of it being orcish is derived from Dwarven script, it's derived from Goblish script instead. I remember reading that. Anyways, Eberron is a very cool setting. Honestly, if you are looking to get outside of Forgotten Realms, Eberron is the first one I would go to, but I have some other settings I would like to bring up as well. Most recently, I picked up a book from Kobold Press, and this is a third-party supplement, but Midgard is a very cool, interesting, different setting that I would push a lot of people to try out if you're looking for something that's not just Wizards of the Coast based. What is it? Well, think of Midgard as you've taken yourself straight to the land of Norse mythology, tacked on with just a lot of extra interesting lore about the people and the races there that goes back centuries and centuries and gives you so much information on like campaigns you can be running. So what do I mean by that? This is more of a dark fantasy setting. So while you've got Eberron, that more noir, that very steampunky feel, you've got Forgotten Realms, high fantasy. Here, this is a more dark fantasy setting. People in Midgard are moving around and warring all the time. They have a whole timeline of events of the wars that have happened, places that used to belong to the elves, that then the humans took over, that then the dwarves took over, that then these people came in and now they're fighting in a war right now. They've got a lot of very interesting stuff to back you up on that. And if you buy the Midgard World Book, which they only sell in PDF form right now, I believe, probably because it's like a 450-page book, like it's a textbook. But the world is flat, first of all. This is a completely flat world. It is explained completely in there. The gods are more or less known of. They're worshipped, and while some of them don't really show their faces to normal people and just send messengers here and there, some you can just visit and you can speak to, you can see. Like, the gods are known of here. Some of them even take up like monarchy power. Like, they're just powerful people that exist. Like, oh yeah, I'm just Thor and I'm here.
Which is so surreal, but also very D&D in my mind.
It's very interesting in my head because I think of that like Elder Scrolls Online. You literally do some quests for some gods here and there, like some quests from Elder Scrolls lore, and I was like, man, I love doing this guy's quest. I want to be like a paladin of this man. I'm having fun. So yeah, that's possible in there. Baba Yaga is a big deal there. A lot. Any of those sort of like more Norse deities that you know about probably have their place in Midgard, given its name. It's Midgard. Anyways, separate from that, you get a lot of very interesting types of magic, types of cities. Zobek is kind of the Baldur's Gate / Waterdeep mix. It's known as the Clockwork City, and technology is more advanced here and more set on that like gunpowder industrial setting than it is in Eberron, I would say. So guns are a thing. Like they exist. They're more in like that flintlock blunderbuss age, which I really like and will be using for Spelljammer and probably in Eberron for sure, just because I like the idea of it. And magic as well is huge for certain societies. The elven societies run like completely on magic and these things called the ley lines. These are if you've ever played God of War, which takes place in Norse mythology, he kind of takes these paths and shortcuts to fast travel along the Tree of Life, the Yggdrasil tree, and as he's walking along it, he can stop off at certain points to fast travel to the place he needs to go. That exists here as well, except you go to this place called the Shadow Realm. They have so much lore on the Shadow Realm. Like, this is a high... you can run your entire campaign based on the Shadow Realm, and they have entire modules and stuff coming out for it, more than I would say you would be able to get from Eberron, which is nice. That Kobold Press has tons of different books featuring their own Midgard setting and running in them, so you wouldn't be strapped for content to run there. All I'm trying to say is there's a lot to go off of with this setting, and it's very interesting. It's very different, and if you're looking for probably higher quality writing than you're going to get from a lot of the Wizards of the Coast stuff lately, and a lot of interesting new mechanics, as well as interesting lore to back up and justify all of your locations, pick up the Midgard book and one or two of the modules that go along with it. I picked it up, and I picked up Streets of Zobek, which is a series of one-offs that take place in the Clockwork City, only because I wanted to try out the setting. I'll probably run these one-offs as we have weeks that we have to take off, and I really want to get a feel for it and see if it's something that we like at all, if it's something that's interesting to run like a 3 or 4 session campaign in here and there and get like some experience with, because they also have a lot of expansions for their setting as well. The Tome of Heroes, they have a whole book of like 600 plus new spells called Deep Magic, and it's literally just a whole spell book. It's a giant book of spells, which I have heard it has struggles with balancing issues because there's so many new spells that it's easy to find a combination to be like, oh, if I combine all of these spells and this subclass together, I'll just be broken. Which I'm all for at my table. I like it when you break your characters, because then I can, throw an ancient dragon at you.
Yeah, that's not fun though.
No, it's super fun. It's like, oh, you get to fight legendary creatures at level 13? Sure.
Nah. Well, we'll whine and complain all we want, but we still haven't died. We still haven't died to any of your high level bullshit. So
Midgard is a very interesting setting that I would recommend. Eberron, while it's amazing and cool, you're going to have to do a lot of back-end work in order to build out a campaign for it, and or buy a lot of stuff on DM's Guild with their main adventures. Midgard, if you want to run something that's not Forgotten Realms and has a lot more bang for your buck, just go to Kobold Press. All of their stuff is set in Midgard, so just buy something from there.
Yeah, and so that's something that I'll caution as well. I think... while we both can agree that we're kind of sick of playing in Forgotten Realms for the time being, there is so much pre-written campaign material that exists in 5th edition for Forgotten Realms. If you're looking for stuff in really any of these other settings that we talk about, you're going to be fishing through a lot of either third-party content or like in the case of Eberron, I found it really hard to find anything substantial for like a full campaign that you could run. You're pretty much doing the legwork there yourself, which is very classic D&D, right? But if you're a DM like me and you want everything to be spoon-fed for you, and then you can come up with like the cool shit that your players remember, then maybe.
And that's exactly what I was going to say about Eberron is, so Midgard's going to give you, those books. Forgotten Realms also, there's plenty of books with pre-written campaigns. Eberron does not, but Sly Flourish ran a campaign in Eberron, of which he mentioned he did a couple of campaign prep episodes, which he's done for campaigns in the past. I love his premise, and I'm going to write a campaign on his premise, which is we have to prevent the second morning.
Ooh.
So the whole premise of the campaign is you guys will get to choose one of the major houses or factions that you'd kind of like to be predisposed to or aligned to, while you're your own adventurers in their right, which one you're being hired by. When you choose which one you're being hired by, I'll be able to know like story elements, and he's kind of got the first 1 or 2 sessions ready to go for me to be like, okay, I can start here. But with their own reasons, each of these houses has to have wants to send out a group of adventurers to figure out how the morning happened and to make sure another one doesn't happen, because that would be really bad. So with all of their own selfish reasons, you're being sent out to prevent this from happening.
Yeah.
Which I love. It gives a lot of room to make up the reason that the second morning happened, or to make it the reason that the first morning happened, to kind of find out who else is going after this, which rival factions are going to be going after this same goal, and also give like plenty of wiggle room to explore the Eberron setting and the Mournlands. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and that's sort of the other thing about Eberron. Just even in the official material, they don't answer some of those big questions for you. Like,
Right.
I mean, obviously players read this shit too, so you don't want to give it all away. But that's like a big thing. Like, imagine the Cold War, but we don't know what the atomic bomb is.
Exactly.
Yet, you know, like you read about it in history, you're like, oh, okay, well, we get it. But imagine what it was like after the atomic bomb dropped and you were anyone else besides like the president of the United States. You're like,
Right.
What the fuck is going on?
And that's exactly what we're going to be dealing with. You guys will be in the middle of the Cold War. Like, it was just so cool to me. It's like, okay, you don't know what's happening. These rival nations have things going on. You know, you're going to be able to travel to these rival nations or to the Mournland to investigate. And I'll probably leave all that up to player choice, kind of figure it all out and let you guys just go along with it however you want. And as you go to these different places, like, okay, well, we know what happened here, so do we want to go to the location first? Do we want to go ask around one of the other rival nations, see if we can get a meeting with a leader? All of that, putting it together is like, oh, I'm so excited to run this campaign.
Yeah, pull some fucking espionage, because we can't let them know where we're from, of course.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's, you know, beside the point. Yeah, you're going to have to do some, you know, writing yourself to get Eberron to work, but when I have been writing lately, when I've been thinking about it, I've been playing. So I literally go on Spotify and look up Noir playlist, and I play some Noir jazz in the back while I'm like, okay, I'm walking around, I'm just typing on my phone some notes for D&D, and I'm just got Noir jazz going on.
Yeah, you know, that was probably my favorite thing about running sessions in Eberron was just like
The vibes.
Yeah, exactly. You set the vibes.
I feel like we'll have to start out in Sharn for sure.
Yeah, and it would feel nice. I mean, for you as well, but for me and Drew to like step back into it and be like, we're home.
Yeah,
we're back again.
It's going to be a really fun setting to run in, and I feel like there's enough room to run a couple of campaigns there and not get tired of it. Anyways, other campaign settings. What are your thoughts, Zach? I know Dragonlance is coming out soon. What do you know about Dragonlance? All I really know about it is it's made by one of the other main authors from the old settings. It's one of the oldest D&D settings, and that one, dragons are a huge political backing. Like, they fight in armies and stuff. Like, they exist alongside the people and are very powerful, like monarchy wise. And that war is like, you're coming into the middle of a war in Dragonlance. So like, this is still happening. You are helping.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking sick. I don't know anything else about Dragonlance. I know they've got some Unearthed Arcana stuff that they've sort of teased about, like different backgrounds that start with first level feats and shit. So we'll learn more about that in the coming months, and we'll probably, if we don't play in Dragonlance within the next little bit, we'll probably swing back around to it eventually, because that definitely does pique my interest as like a closet Fire Emblem super fan.
Yeah,
I do love the idea of, you know, D&D tactical combat in like a war setting.
Yeah, I'd like to know how that's run, and I know that they're releasing a board game alongside it, like Warriors of Krynn, which is the planet or the space that Dragonlance exists on. I'm interested in it. I'm definitely gonna pick up the book for sure, and read through it and get an idea for it, get a feel for it. I think, yeah, we'll eventually run something there. It just might be a long time because we have so much stuff to do. Honestly, at this point, Zach, we might have to talk about this in the post show. I want to play more D&D. I'm getting the feels for it, and I'm like, I want to play more. How can I play more?
Yeah, we got to figure that shit out. Because, you know, I ran my one-off the other day, but we could only get 3 people there for it, and, you know.
Might have to start up a smaller campaign, honestly. Like,
yeah.
Chase isn't doing anything. You and Drew have time in the evenings, you know, just me, you, Drew, and Chase, and be like, all right, let's just do this.
Yeah, we could. But the thing about that, though, is then, like, we can't get Chase to show up in person once a week. most of the time.
No,
so.
I feel like if we had to do it again, we'd have to do it either online or... Sorry, let's talk about it in the post show. Let's talk about it in the post show. Outside of these written campaign settings we've been talking about, fourth of all, Spelljammer is a very cool setting as well. So yeah, let's briefly talk about Spelljammer since we're going to be talking about that. We have talked about it. If you want to know more about Spelljammer, you can go back to our Spelljammer episode like 3 weeks ago. We literally did an entire rundown of the 5th edition Spelljammer setting, what we like about it, what we don't like, and what we're doing with it in the future. Our next campaign that we're running is going to be Spelljammer, so we're probably going to talk about it a lot throughout the next year. I'm a huge fan of this space cereal box sci-fi setting, this Flash Gordon, really fun fantasy space setting. 5e doesn't do it justice. You can't run a whole campaign just off of the book they gave you unless you're just doing the 12 session
Light of Xerxes.
Yeah, Light of Xerxes campaign they gave you. So love it. I think it's awesome. You're going to have to go for third-party material as well, but Spelljammer is supposed to be like a fun space opera, which is going to be so lit. You're riding on literal boats throughout space. It's badass. Treasure Planet. Think of Treasure Planet. Think of Flash Gordon. Think of what are some other things I can relate it to?
I don't know. Fucking Star Wars. You ever seen Star
Guardians
Wars?
of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, all of those things except your elves, your hippos, your
Goo-men.
Thri-Kreen, which are bug people. So monkeys in space, Hadazee, those are super cool. So yeah, you're all these wacky, cool races, people, just hanging out in space, doing your thing, riding around on boats. I mean, it's really cool. It's really interesting, and I would say it's really fun. The tone of it is very much like Guardians of the Galaxy-esque, very Flash Gordon-esque, and I couldn't be more excited to run this campaign. That being said, 2nd edition has a lot of Spelljammer stuff, some really good campaigns, and really good books to brush you up on the setting. You can use what they released for 5e to flesh out what's written in those 2nd edition settings, but the 2nd edition stuff from Spelljammer, there's PDFs and stuff online you can buy the physical books. They're just really expensive now. There's a lot of good stuff to go off there, as well as on DM's Guild, they have a lot of really cool Spelljammer additions as well. So check out Spelljammer if you want to do D&D in space with 5e as your sort of template.
Yeah, and so I guess that's true for a lot of settings that like they had a lot of good information for this shit in older editions. I think 5e that they've recently just sort of been going through, well, let's knock this one off the list. Let's knock this one off the list. People keep asking for it. Let's get it done. We don't have any Greyhawk in 5e except for Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which is set on Earth.
So dumb.
That's OERTH, not
the original D&D setting.
Yeah. Mr. Gygax, rest in peace. His whole spiel, which I'll say from what I've read of Greyhawk and sort of my preparation for running Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which we've been doing on the side here very infrequently. It's very much like Forgotten Realms. I mean,
that's what kind of turned me off from Greyhawk.
Yeah, it's another fantasy setting. With it's got all the stuff that you expect, but Mordenkainen's from there, and he pops around in the multiverse and shows up in Forgotten Realms a lot. So it's nice that where he came from.
And let me also say, Exandria, Matthew Mercer's setting, very interesting one, and one that I would be interested in checking out. One of the campaigns they come out with that exists there, Call of the Netherdeep, exists in that one. Exandria is a very well fleshed out campaign setting, and it's also more of that dark fantasy-esque along those lines. The only reason I don't run in it is because I watch and listen to Critical Role, and I can't do it justice for what Mr. Mercer does. Like, watching that campaign, listening to the way that he presents his realm and his characters, I feel like just go listen to Critical Role if you want to exist in Exandria.
Yeah, and I think I'm still, on the outskirts of, I haven't seen any, I've watched part of the first episode of campaign 1 of Critical Role. So I'm very much on the outskirts of that, but I do like that they are releasing material for this setting. So even if you don't want to use the named NPCs, you can jump into that, and they've even got a full module for 5e.
Yeah, they have Call of the Netherdeep, and then they also have their entire Tal'Dorei books, which is Tal'Dorei is I don't know everything about it, but I believe it's one of the continents or the name of the world or whatever in his Exandria setting.
Which is pretty sick.
Yeah, so check out that if you're into Critical Role and you really want to exist in that world. I'm sure you could do a great job running a campaign there. I just don't want to. I'm into the other ones.
Yeah, and just to bring up the other ones that have been released for 5th edition, we do have a few sort of pulled from Magic the Gathering. So there's Strixhaven, Curriculum of Chaos, which is very much Harry Potter themed D&D. I mean, it's all based around your wizards going to a magic school with, each, there's 4 different houses, all have a different mascot, very blatantly ripping off Harry Potter.
Strixhaven is cool, and it comes with a cool campaign. So I would recommend trying it if you're into Harry Potter.
Yeah, there's Strixhaven. There is Mythic Odysseys of Theros, which is Greek mythology. Really, I can't believe that we've slept on this one because it sounds like such a good idea. Maybe we'll come back around to it at some point.
I don't think we will.
But yeah, none of us are, I guess you, Drew, and Pat all play Magic the Gathering, and Pat really loves Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're that into the lore of it to, jump into it that
Ravnica
much.
is the Magic the Gathering setting that that D&D has, and again, it brings all of those Magic the Gathering characters and stuff there. Very powerful mages, ancient heroes that have risen and fought in huge calamities. And again, I love the card game Magic the Gathering, but I have never looked into the lore. But if you're a Magic the Gathering player and you're trying to get your Magic the Gathering card group to play, like, hey, we can play in Ravnica. I was about to say Ravenspire. Ravnica. So yeah, that could entice your characters to play there. There's a whole Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah.
So check it out. And it is very guild-based, which I do like. It's these different sects of people that have come together and, just like the cards.
Yeah, sort of like the dragon-marked houses from Eberron.
Exactly. So,
but you could be a Loxodon, which they haven't come back in any of the other books. Elephant people.
I wanted to ask you, in Eberron, do you think it would be out of place to have GIF existing there?
No.
I didn't think so. I thought about in the setting after we've run Spelljammer having some of those tones existing and say the GIF quite literally came from Spelljamming in outer space.
I think that's perfectly
appropriate. And they've
appropriate.
come down to Eberron and they exist in Sharn. And possibly have something to do with maybe a Hadazee or two have existed there, but they're not there aren't a lot of them. Like, people have heard of them. They've been experimented on by the more dark houses or whatever, but Hadazee aren't as prominent, but they can exist there because they are more of the spell jamming races like the GIF.
Yeah, and so Eberron too, they don't explicitly mention a lot of the races, so a lot of the shit you'll find in Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse, like Aarakocra, Kenku, Tabaxi, Lizard Folk, all of them are sort of implied to, these exist in this world if you want them to.
There are space lizard folk, which are literally just lizard folk in space. They just look a lot different in Spelljammer. And I would say those are the ones I would like to exist in Eberron. Well, I guess regular lizard folk could be there as well, but I would love to see the space lizard folk just kind of existing there already.
Yeah, but I do like that open-endedness to it as well. Because Eberron already is sort of... they've got a ton of flagship races. Of course, you got the Warforged, and then Shifters, who are these lycanthrope people who change between animals. The Changelings that change they're humanoid shapeshifters. They change their appearance to look like other people, sort of like a doppelganger. All that shit exists in Eberron. Anyway, I think the one other 5th edition setting that we haven't mentioned, and I haven't looked into too deeply, which is rich coming from me, is Ravenloft.
Yeah, Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft.
Yeah, which I ran all of Curse of Strahd, and I've very much gotten my gothic horror fix, but if you haven't, or you want to expand your Curse of Strahd campaign and say, oh, well, I don't want to go back to Forgotten Realms, or I don't want to go back to whatever setting you had them come from, or your party come from, you want to expand out into the Domains of Dread. They've got just a ton of different areas sort of sectioned off. If you know anything about Curse of Strahd, you know that Barovia is Strahd's domain, but there's sort of this alternative idea. Well, okay, well, what if Strahd's domain isn't the only one? What if there are these other domains all sort of taken over by this big dominant personality, basically? So,
God, I love that.
Yeah, they've got like a werewolf one. There's one that's ruled by a lich. There's one ruled by a death knight. There's one with it's like Japanese or Chinese vampires, like a whole Eastern themed one. Yeah, just a ton of cool stuff in there. I haven't gone super deep into like the whole setting part of it, just because we've played a lot in Curse of Strahd. But it might be something nice to come back to eventually, or if nothing else, just sort of plugging the book. I really love those monsters in the back of it, and the player options are they're tight. So pick up Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft if you haven't. But
speaking of just monsters, Kobold Press does have these things called the Creature Codex and the Tome of Beasts. Let me tell you, these are better monster manuals. Like, these are good monster manuals. Looking through there, interesting creatures, lots of lore for each creature. And let me tell you, as someone who is using the Nine Hells heavily in the coming freaking campaign days, there are so many Archdevil stat blocks for me to use.
Nice.
There's a good, like, dozen for me to go through and be like, okay, I have personalities and names for all of these Archdevils that I can plug and play and use them for the Nine Hells. And I'm like, I'm so excited because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have to go online and find these. I have them here. They're real. They exist right here, and they're not broken. They're not like broken or wrong. This is like a good character. As well as plenty more types of devils that you won't see in the monster manuals and stuff. So yeah, if you're running a specific type of campaign, there's all kinds of different monsters in there. I feel like I'll never run out of monsters now. There are these 3 pocket edition size manuals, and there's just hundreds. They're like 200 pages each, just hundreds of monsters. And I'm like, oh, finally, just like a large amount of good creatures for me to write endless one-offs on and run endless adventures on.
Yeah, and so that's another benefit of all these setting books. Even if you're not ready to head out of your setting of choice, they're nice to pick up just for
inspiration.
Yeah, inspiration and those monsters. There's just a lot of awesome monster stat blocks. I mean, who doesn't want to fight a Warforged Colossus at some point in their D&D career? Like, Seth, if you're running us through Eberron, like it sounds like you are, I really want to fight a giant fucking robot.
Listen, I hope none of our players listen to this, because if you think that when you're walking through like the Mournland, a leftover Warforged Colossus won't come to life, like, come on.
Yeah, that's what it's all about right there.
So, with that, guys, Zach and I have had our own campaign settings in the past that we've written. I only want to take a couple minutes. We don't need to go too in-depth. I had one that I wrote up. I don't even remember what I named the continent, but I do remember my one specific Waterdeep-like city was called Snowhaven. It very much existed in that high fantasy run by mages city. So, any of your most powerful casters, which mostly typically consisted of high elves and tieflings. This was a tiefling and high elf heavy city, which I really like the idea of having tieflings heavily invested in your campaign. So tieflings and high elves were common here, and the strongest one sat on a board which controlled this city called Snowhaven, which sat in between 2 mountains, and a magical veil protected them from the cold weather, as quite often in the winter it would get so cold that snow would come from the top of these mountains and pelt down on the city, freezing things over, keeping them from growing crops. So Snowhaven is quite literally the safety from the snow in the winter, which I really liked. I thought it was a lot of fun when I came up with it. It's typical, and there was also Mount Hammersoul, which is a dwarven civilization. There were almost no dwarves in Snowhaven. There were some, but not very many. Hammersoul was an undead dwarven civilization that fell a long time ago. Dwarves are very sparse now; they barely exist. So most of them were more nomadic. They traveled around to a couple of different cities that I wrote up, and then. Likewise, on the eastern side, on the other mountain was Mount Ravenspire, one surrounded by mystique, where a lot of there was a green dragon that lived there at one point. At one point, an archmage made a mega dungeon on the inside, and players had to go in a short campaign I ran. Some players had to go in and kind of solve all the puzzles that this archmage left behind. It was my own little campaign setting. What did I learn from that? Making campaign settings is hard. Having answers to all the questions is hard. And that's where I got my habits of just making up everything, because I would make it up and it was canon because I made it up. So it's fun to make your own campaign setting. Just be prepared to write a lot of things, make a lot of work, unless it's just a 1 to 5. A 1 to 5 is fine. The second you go outside of your city and you're writing up entire other cities, it's going to be very hard. I had an entire city that was based on hunters and gatherers, and there was a whole caste system there based on who hunts the best, who's the strongest. I literally wrote up an entire hierarchy of rankings for the people there, going all the way from down to from mole up to an eagle and bear, rankings of these people. It's if you're a bear in the city, you're one of the best people, the strongest, the best hunters there. Eagles go on typically scouting missions and do things like that, while the moles and the people like that were, on the lower crust.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah, I wrote
Never told me about that.
I wrote a whole city with a whole hierarchy and named all of the leaders, everything, and was ready to run stuff there. And then we ended up doing Storm King's Thunder and stuff like that. That I was oh, well, I never ended up doing all of that. So yeah, I wrote out the whole hierarchy, was ready to run stuff there. And then likewise, I wrote a high elven only civilization off to the west, which was run by the most astute headmasters of an academy and bard colleges. So. Yeah, I had a great time writing this setting. Do I think I'll ever use it again? Probably not. I might run a one-off in Barovin, which was the hunter-gatherer area. So, and you just use it as an Uthgard tribe or something in Forgotten Realms, or just a nomadic people.
Sure. Yeah, and so I think it is perfectly valid to write your own campaign setting and play there. I think there is sort of a notion that goes around you're not a real DM until you've run X amount of games in your own setting, and completed a campaign, I guess. I also spent some time working on my own campaign setting. It was the Kingdom of Alemia is what I called it, and it was essentially the exact opposite of Seth's campaign. So yours was very high fantasy, but for mine, I really just wanted to take the idea of, because a lot of the good fantasy media out there, like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones and all of that, is very low magic, to the point where I wanted the option for magic to exist, but I wanted it to feel more special when it appears. So,
and against the law in some places.
Yeah. So exactly, that was the whole idea, was this in this kingdom. We understand that magic exists, but a long time ago, there were large wars fought with these clans of wizards and dragons, and the whole 9 yards. And it tore the world apart. It broke down every known civilization, and we had to start from scratch. So the existing world, as we know it, is essentially the remnant of this once high magic civilization. And magic users do exist, but they're very secretive. And you're right; it's completely outlawed to outwardly cast magic anywhere that you go within Alemia. And so there were multiple different nations that I had set up, and different areas around the continent. There was the nation of Dor, I called it, which was Dohr. I thought it was so clever because that's the one in the middle. You have to go through there to get anywhere.
That is pretty funny.
But so the whole idea there was I wanted to have you guys start at level 1 and just feel what it's like to play D&D in a world where magic is very hard to come by, and then eventually build you up to the Wall, which I didn't realize that this was very Game of Thrones until I saw Game of Thrones, and then realized, oh shit. But I had this whole wall built up where essentially on the other side of it, no one knows what's over there. It was built a long time ago before the current nations of man. But on the other side is I think I called it the wild. It wasn't the wild space, because that's in in Spelljammer, but it was something very similar.
Yeah, where the wildlings live, like Game of Thrones.
It's like the wild land or something. But in any case, that's where you find magic and everything that that once existed in previous versions of the world with high magic society, all sort of coalesce and form here. But it's all very unrefined, very dangerous, very unknown. So there's a lot of exactly. So there's an element of wild magic to it. Things just sort of happen in this place. People are born sorcerers, and you'll run into all sorts of magical creatures on the other side of the wall. But the whole campaign setting that I had built out for you guys was away from that, and so eventually you'd have to journey over to the other side.
Ooh, This is something we should flesh out, Zach, because we can take my hunter-gatherers and plop them down in your wild area with wild magic barbarians and sorcerers.
Yeah, that'd be like, fucking
boom,
sick.
They exist over there. And then, have their whole tribal stuff. You can just take my notes that existed for those guys. And then, have this whole campaign setting, write it out, write a book on it, release it, and make Kobold Press or one of the other Hit Point Press, one of the people who makes third-party stuff, make a book off of it. Money.
We could very much do that. So anyway, if that sounds super interesting to you,
or
maybe
put it on Patreon. Just put it on Patreon.
Yeah, we'll consider fleshing that out a little bit more.
I love that. It's very Game of Thrones-esque, but in the way that includes fantasy and magic. Because I wanted to be like a bardic character or a sorcerer who is doing their best as a vigilante to hide their magic but still get jobs. So I played Vatikas Hoy, the son of the city.
Right, yeah, because you were from Hoy.
Because I was from Hoy. And so my name was Valikas, and he was basically just a vigilante who took up jobs as a master crossbowman. But in reality, his crossbow didn't really do much for him. He could use his crossbow, but on the inside there was a little ruby installed. He would flip open a slot on the end, and he would use it as an arcane focus only once he was out on the job. So he was a professional vigilante, above the law. Which I really liked. It was a lot of fun having to hide that from, civilization, which was really cool. Anyways, anything else you can think of on campaign settings, what you think of them, what they mean to you, which one you would run in? I think I would run campaigns in all of these settings. And we talked a lot about Eberron. Probably a third of our show was all about Eberron because I think it's the one we're most excited for and the one that I feel like has the most potential for... the most threads for DMs to follow. Also, Eberron Rising from the Last War includes an intro campaign, so you will not be strapped for material to start your players out on. There's a cool intro campaign in there that is so cool.
Yeah, I ran you guys through it. I mean, it's only like a 1 to 2, technically, but...
We played it for 5 sessions, I think.
Yeah, more than that. Just from all the random bullshit that you got yourselves into. Because the other thing that it does is it really fleshes out Sharn as a city, so... if you want to run like a noir fantasy
1 to
campaign,
5,
yeah, I mean you could easily slot like Waterdeep Dragon Heist or any other urban campaign in there, and it would play beautifully.
And that campaign, I think to this day, is still my favorite campaign I've played in. And it was short. Like we didn't even play that much. We quit in the middle. Not in the middle. We finished off that section, but. There was still stuff to do. It is my favorite campaign I've played in by far. I had so much fun.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I want to come back to. But talking about just campaign settings that we don't have in 5th edition that I really want, I'm just gonna spit it out there. What?
Planescape, right?
Yes, Planescape. Planescape is so fucking cool. I don't know all that much about it, but I'd love to know more.
It's Spelljammer without the space travel.
Yeah, well, so you do still work with like the astral plane and the but instead of using space travel to get through, it's sort of this idea of there's a society of planeswalkers, people who travel between planes, and they all meet in a what's it even called? Sigil, the City of Doors.
Right.
Where they've got, portals taking you anywhere. And so you can have these low-level adventurers who exist in this sort of planeswalker, planescape society that go on these adventures to different planes and dealing with different things. So...
I wanted it so badly as well before Spelljammer came out, and then Spelljammer came out and disappointed me, and I was like, do I even want Planescape now? Because I was like, I could just read the old books and write my own Planescape campaign.
Yeah, probably. And I have done a little bit of reading for some of the second edition Planescape stuff, and it's pretty cool. But I'll hold off on it. I think eventually they'll probably come around with something, and if it's in the current version of D&D, whether that be 1 D&D or what have you, I think that would be a good starting point to jump off of, and then go back to the old stuff.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Table Talk Friday without our boy Drew. Hopefully he is feeling better or fine right now. Send him your love and prayers if you're into that. Otherwise, you can find us on patreon.com/Tabletalk Friday. We're about to have our post show that we're just about to record after this. You get episodes a week early if you subscribe at the $10 tier, and a slew of other benefits if you subscribe at higher tiers. On top of that, you can find us on TikTok.com or at TikTok at TableTalk Friday, on Twitter at TableTalk Friday, and on YouTube at TableTalk Friday. Again, patreon.com/TableTalk Friday would mean a ton to us if you check it out. It's great, and we have tons of bonus content on there. Also, if you would like to send in any inquiries, talk about your campaign settings, maybe one we missed that we should talk about on the next episode, you can email us on tabletalkfriday@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and things that you'd like us to know about in your campaign settings. And with that, why don't I have the Planeswalker take me out?
Hello, it is I, the Planeswalker. I walk upon fields, I walk upon roads, and yes, I also walk through the plains. Oh, I'm so whimsical and fun. It's me, the Planeswalker. Goodbye. Get out of my house. I also live in a house.